Well, welcome everyone. I have the privilege today of interviewing Trevor Carty. So this is the first of a series that I'll be doing as we go forward. I've been interviewing South African authors, and now I'm interviewing business owners, South African business owners, people that are making a difference in the business environment. And Trevor is the first person I'm interviewing in this series, so I'm excited to introduce him and to also get to know him and his story. So Trevor, I want to start at the beginning. Let's get to know you a little bit as a person. And so I'm going to just throw a pebble into the pond and ask you to think back. I don't know how long ago that would be, but when you were a kid, what is it that you wanted to be when you were growing up?
So Leigh, thanks so much for interviewing me today, and I feel quite privileged to be your first interview. So
yeah,
I grew up in Bryanston in the days of no fences and dirt roads, and my father was a super salesman, and my mother was a teacher. My father ended up being the managing director of Olivetti, selling office automation, which was typewriters. And my mother was at Rivonia Primary School. So my dad had a brief session after he reached the pinnacle of his career as the managing director at Olivetti. He decided he wanted to build pubs. So he started building bars. And a year and a half later, the family was looking very thin. And he decided he better find something else to do. Otherwise, my mother had threatened that we would all go and live elsewhere. So he was always tickled pink by the financial services industry, and in particular insurance. And a mate of his that he played poker with every Thursday night of his life for 30 years was very successful in the selling of life insurance. And so he went and he did an aptitude test at Liberty Life. And he spent his last 20 odd years of his life at Liberty Life in the financial services sector, developing agents and managing the academy to train people how to be in the insurance business. My mother, she went on and studied further, and she became a specialist in diagnostics and pedagogics. And she is a music specialist, and she then moved on to go and run that business for Montrose Primary. And so I was always between teaching and financial services, and I was the oldest of three kids. And when I finished my high school in 1983, I got a matric with an exemption to go to university. And much to my father's excitement, he said, "Yeah, but we got a kid who's going to get a degree." And I went to go and sign up to get a degree. And when I came back and told him that I was going to do a Bachelor of Arts, he said to me, no, you go back tomorrow and you register for a real degree. So I went and did a Bachelor of Science. Problem was I didn't do science for matric, so I had to catch up a whole lot of things. And I then said to him, he needs to give me some money to pay this university. And he said, well, we're not a wealthy family. You must go get a bursary. And so I knocked on the door of TED. TED is the Transvaal Education Department back in those days. And they said, "Oh, you're going to do science. We're looking for science teachers." So I didn't tell them that I didn't have science, but I was going to end up with chemistry and physics and biochemistry and genetics. And I majored in botany and geography. So I went off to Wits and I did that. And then one of the caveats is that you have to do a postgraduate degree in education. So I then did a postgraduate degree in education. I did an HDB and wandered off to the army, which all teachers go down to Oudtshoorn and we become lieutenants. And then we dash off to run one or other infantry school. Let's call it a branch for the moment. And I went to run 121 Battalion in North Pretoria. And that's when we decided to free Mr. Mandela. And we needed some money in the South African government to pay the Cadesa people. And so they set the teachers free early. And what problem with that was national service was seen as part of my payback of my bursary. And all of a sudden, I was cut short of my 2 years. I only had to do 18 months. And I got a temporary post in Queen's College instead of my permanent post at Bryanston High. I lost my housing subsidy. I lost my lieutenant's pay. I lost my danger pay. I lost my money from my 400 hot dogs and beers I sold to my troops every night when when the permanent force guys went back to Pretoria. So I was in a desperate state. And then when I got to my new school, Kensington, I thought, no, I'm not convinced that I should be teaching. So I phoned my father and I said to him, you got me into this mess, get me out of this mess. And 3 days later, I picked up my new car. I drove to Swaziland for our first of many conferences. And I came back and started in the employ of Liberty Life, this time 30 years ago. So the first week of August, 30 years ago, I started in the financial services space and loved it, haven't left it. I find I do a lot of adult education, giving advice to the wealthy.
Wow, isn't it amazing that you've sort of this sort of unsure start and then you just found your place in financial services and you're as excited today as you were 30 years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. And along the way, we've had some really interesting things. The first thing is when I was at Liberty, we had a team that put together healthcare products. And we were led by a guy called Adrian Gore. And we know the story there. Liberty were a little short-sighted. Adrian left to start Discovery. And it was at that time that I went broking and left corporate employ. And that was 1993. So been independent brokers since 1993. I was quite instrumental in the Old Mutual's BEE deal with a consortium called the Mateo Consortium. So Bulelani Nuka and his partners, we managed to get ourselves involved there. So I spent some time running an empowerment business called Amabubezi Financial Services for Bulelani and Peter Moyo. And sometimes you shouldn't mention some of these names, but these are all our stories, aren't they? Then I had a partner for 20 years, a guy called Andrew Penny, and we built a business called TAB. People used to joke with us, it's Trevor and Andrew's business, but it stood for Trusted Advice and Benefits. And we then sold that to Sasfin. We rebranded it as HRS Insurance over the years, and it became Sasfin HRS, and that was 5 and a bit years ago. And then we've just been pottering around this last period and working on my passions in education and agriculture, and find ourselves with an opportunity to make a massive difference in the medical space, and in particular for medical malpractice. So that's my new excitement.
So I want to pause there because I want to come back and I really want us to drill down into this. I think it's a great initiative and I'm really excited to hear about it. But as you're talking, Trevor, it just makes you really say 30 years in the same industry, but actually you've reinvented yourself time and time again. You've gone down different ways, different partnerships, different connections, big, small, wide, deep. And so I find that really interesting, is that you can fall in love with a particular industry and know it, become an expert, but it doesn't define you, that you're actually creating and recreating yourself within that industry, depending on opportunities and circumstances the whole time.
It's I think as a Gemini, I've always had a couple of personalities, and that's always led to more than one business at a time, which sometimes when you don't have all your focus in one place, it can lead you astray. But so the reinvention is a very important thing in our business in financial services. And today, with the internet and Google, advice is the real gold, because there are tons and tons of product that can really get you in trouble if you haven't had good advice. And there are some really great new products that have come to market that really have changed and redefined the way financial planning and advice should be given. So very, very exciting. And yes, it's a competitive marketplace and very confusing for the consumer out there. Very, very confusing. When I started in the business, we had 40,000 advisors in South Africa. Today, we've got less than 8,000. So yeah, it's when we started 30 years ago, we had a very small middle class and a handful of wealthy. Now we've got a great middle class and two handfuls of very wealthy. And yeah, it's a shrinking pool. Intellectual capital in this space is led mainly by the white male, age 64. So so we're a dying breed. Luckily, I'm still got a couple of years to go to 64.
There you go. There you go. And you know, as you speak, Trevor, you just exude this passion and for what you do. So what is it that you love? What is it that you love about what you do?
Leigh, I think it comes down to a couple of things. I'm a people's person, and I love competition. And when you play in the high network space, you really need to be a people's person. You need to be able to go out and have a single malt with the best of them. It's always nice to be able to play golf with a single figure handicap, to travel a lot and to have quite a broad range of interests. So the nature of that is that I meet clients doing what I love. So it's a lifestyle business. And what's really cool is that your customer becomes your mate. And it's in that relationship that you get to see things that not many people do with their mates. So I've paid out in excess of a dozen of my mates' heart attack claims. I have buried and given my mates' wives and families many tens of millions of rands worth of insurance checks. I've retired 300, 400, 500 people successfully. I've immigrated at least 100 families. And you know, it's always a dynamic. It's either a new kid or a divorce or a new wedding and then you get this referral to the new family, and you just keep building these relationships. And inevitably, it doesn't happen in an office. It happens in a game farm, on an airplane, on a golf course, at a lunch. And that's been the toughest part for me, just because this has been such a good business to be out there eating, drinking, and entertaining. I've had to use this Corona time to knock off a couple of pounds.
So there are two things that I want to pick up there, and the one is that you're describing, as you say, a lifestyle, and that it's business, and yet it's also personal, and that you're connected very much to the personal lives, the sort of the guts really of what life is about with your customers that are actually your mates, and integrally connected to the life change things that form their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it started that day when I phoned my father to say, "You got me into this trouble, you better get me out of this trouble." And when I started that very first week after that Swaziland conference, one of the things that I had to do in my orientation week was I had to learn to get empathy for salespeople and engage with customers. And for us to keep our training going, you had to sell 5 policies over a period of 2 weeks. And so the very first policy I ever sold was to my father. And 20 years later, my father dropped dead. And he was my first estate. Can you believe it? After 20 years in the business. And I realized then that I had been in a very practical business of theory. But the reality of a death is so different to just planning for it. And it ended up with me writing a book called Lessons from My Late Father, which really changed the way that I've been doing planning and the way I've viewed my own life for the last decade. And it's changed the way that I help my clients think. You know, it's very small things like never die at the end of the month. So my father died on the 30th of April. And it was the next day was a Friday, and the Lions were playing Crusaders at Ellis Park. And so my dad and I, we used to love our rugby together, and he didn't answer my call. And finally, he phones back that Thursday morning. I said, "Geez, Dad, where have you been?" And the guy says, "Who's speaking?" I said, "Okay, you're not my dad. What's happened to my dad?" He says, "I'm the paramedic and he's dead." So the first thing you learn is that death is quick and it's final and it's over. And, you know, as much as I'm a man of God, I can pray over a lot of things, but I was stuck in the traffic in Linden picking up my tickets. So I thought, well, I need not rush across there. But when I did get across there at about 8:15, the first issue I had to deal with was the man who raised me. His name is Philip. And Philip was devastated. He was crying over my father's body. He had been with my father for 40 years. He had raised me. And finally, when I finished with the snort and trana on my clothing from hugging him and just pacifying him, and he wiped his eyes, looked me in the eye and said, "Who's paying me today?" And I said, well, it won't be John. So I said, "How much do you get paid?" And he told me a number, and I thought, wow, my dad was a really generous man. And at 9 o'clock, I went through the same rigmarole again with his domestic lady who used to come and clean his house 3 times a week. And it was just hysterical. That day, my son used to play rugby, and I played quite competitive golf on Thursdays. And so it used to be Grandpa and his grandson's rugby day. And I had to cancel golf, which I'd never done. And I had to go just to pick my son up and watch him play rugby. And when I got there, my son said, "Where's Grandpa?" And that's for the first time when I kind of had a little bit of a meltdown. And the very first question he asked me after that was, "Did Grandpa have his cell phone hanging around his neck when he died?" I said, "Yeah, I took it off him this morning when his body was lying in the passage between the kitchen and the lounge." I said, "That's quite an interesting question, Tristano. Why?" He says, "Dad, do you know what his PIN number for his cell phone is?" I said, "Whoa, now you've got me. What? Why would I want to know that?" He says, "Well, if the phone goes dead, how are you going to start it again and phone all his buddies and tell them about the funeral?" And I realized I have been a crap financial planner for 20 years because I hadn't been collecting the right information. So it led to the book and led to a whole lot of different matrices that we talk about differently today when we do financial planning with our clients.
Wow. Isn't it amazing that we can learn so much at maybe the worst time in our lives? When
Absolutely.
that has raised, we've loved and been so much part of our life. And then the very thing that we're doing stops being theoretical. And as you say, you that ultra focus in that moment, and that those lessons are now what you pass on to your customers, to your mates. That's
no, absolutely. And I mean, it's one of the joke questions I have is, can I quickly just have a look at your will? Because we couldn't find my father's will. And as much as I wound the estate up in 30 days, we battled with the will for the first week. And what a nightmare. What a nightmare. Doug Smart, just a shout out to you. Thanks for the help there in the end, boy.
A little help from our friends, right?
A little help from my attorney friends, yeah.
Gosh, Trevor. So as you say, it's real life, touching people at the best and the worst times, and making a difference and actually impacting them in the right way, in the right time. Because if you can smooth over those things, then you get to deal with the real issues at hand, which is actually connecting with family and friends and doing all the things that are really important. And you've managed the rest. Trevor, tell me, there's a burning project that you're working on at the moment. You mentioned it, something about medical practitioners. So what is it that you're doing now that's occupying your time and energy and interest?
Thanks, Leigh. So I think in this COVID time, we're all rethinking how we do things, how we live our lives, and how do we refine our financial situations. And insurance has always been a grudge purchase, and inevitably it takes up a reasonable chunk of our disposable income before we get to spending anything on lifestyle. And I have been top of mind in this pandemic time about the healthcare practitioners that have really so selflessly been out there, right on the front line every day. I have members of my family that are in that space. I have some of my best mates who are in that space. And the medical industry has had a one-size-fits-all kind of product for the last 20-odd years. And it's a community-rated membership scheme, which has a whole lot of pitfalls in it. And if you have got relationships like we've got with global reassurers, with strong South African insurers, and with great underwriters, and you can challenge the status quo, you can do some really incredible stuff. So I partnered with Genoa Underwriters, Michael John and his team, and we have Sapphire as our insurance partners, and Munich Re, which is the second largest insurer in the world, as our reinsurer. And we've put together the most spectacular medical malpractice insurance product. So for the first time, well, not for the first time, there are a handful of other insured products out there, but we now have a very, very comprehensive product that is got a wider breadth of coverage. It's got a more significant structure. The way that its premiums are allocated allows the practitioner to build personal wealth inside of their own premiums. And most importantly, to give them peace of mind that if there is a claim, a medical malpractice claim, that it is a defined claim and will be settled appropriately, and will be settled ultimately by the reinsurer, and the reinsurer is the second largest in the world. So you get all those things as a healthcare practitioner. You never think something's going to go wrong, but things do go wrong. And when you do have a claim, you want to make sure that it's paid and that it's not maybe something that'll get caught up in a membership benefits scheme. Most of our premium rates across the board, right through from audiologists to obstetrics, save contribution somewhere between 20 and 40% a month, which is significant because some of these guys are paying tens and 20,000 rands a quarter, 100,000 rand a year. So when you're saving 20, 30, 40,000 rand a year, it's significant. And at the end of the day, it's all about the team that you've got behind you. And we've got a spectacular bunch of in-house attorneys and external attorneys in Norton Rose Fulbright, and in Clyde & Co., and in Weber Wenzel. We've then partnered in particular to bring something fresh to the doctors. All of us as professionals have to keep up to date with our continuous professional development. And in the healthcare space, they call it continuous education units. And so what Genoa did, which has been great for us, is that they have partnered Dr. Brad Byra, and we have put together 5 CPD points, CEU points, for healthcare practitioners. And it's just another value add to these people that are our friends. And we then have a little fun thing alongside of what we do. We institute all the cover through our brokerage called Finance Partners. We are a registered FSP with the FSCA. But to have a bit of fun, we have a business called the Purvey Collection. And that's really about how do you spend the money that you've saved.
We seem to have lost Trevor. So we will just wait for him to come back to us. Oh, the beauties of internet that comes and goes. So I'm going to pause, and as soon as Trevor's back, we will start recording again. Well, we're back with Trevor. Yes, Trevor was load shedded, so off he went. And but we make a plan, and he's made a plan, so he's back with us on his cell phone. So Trevor, you were telling us And what I found amazing about what you were describing as you were talking through this new venture, new product for medical practitioners, is this amalgamation of these different partnerships. And that's come from years and years of networking and knowing and building relationships. But it's from the underwriters to the attorneys to everybody that you kind of bringing this, all the various parties together to create this amazing product. And then you started talking about this fun thing that you had where the money was being saved. Tell us about that now.
Yeah, so it is a lifestyle business, and as much as surgeons and cardiologists and oncologists love their profession, when they're not working, they also like to have fun and do things that are fun. And so we've just put a couple of really fun things together where we invite our clients to come and participate. And this Purvey Collection is exactly that. So we have about 24 of the world's finest single malts, which you traditionally wouldn't get access to, that we get our customers together with us and we taste them, and we have those distillers come out from Scotland and Ireland and Kentucky and India, and we just have fun.
Boys.
Don't make a mistake. Girls.
Are there girls there too?
The amount of professional medical people that are A, women, and B, women that love single malt Scotch. Incredible.
Well, there you go. You see, that's me across the head doing what stereotyping here.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that sounds fun, Trevor. So as you say, you're combining the love of what you do with a whole life of that includes really good stuff.
Yeah, very much so. Much so. And again, so what we've done is strategically we've partnered with ASA, which is the Association of Surgeons of South Africa. They are responsible for about 8 other disciplines, right through from cardiovascular. And we are a preferred partner with them. We're very excited about next week because we go live on all their websites as a primary partner. And yeah, we're bringing something very new and very special and very fresh to the market. And I'm on the way from here to go and have dinner with my great friend who grew up with me, Mark Human. He's always been our go-to doctor in our family. He's an orthopedic surgeon. He has not only treated me and my brother, but all my children. He's fixed all our breakages. And he's the Gauteng Master Chairman. And I can't wait to just share with him over a bottle of wine or some of our own homemade vodka and gin, because we have a small distillery that works with us, with our Purvey Collection clients to distill our own product. Yeah, it's a whole new market out there. And so far we've had a very, very good response from the medical professionals.
That's fantastic. Trevor, I'm a bit concerned about all your breakages. I mean, when you've got your personal orthopedic surgeon, then I get a bit worried about how many breakages you've had. Like, I haven't had one in my life. What are you guys doing with your single malt and your golf?
Exactly. So mine haven't been mine personally, but all of my children. So I've got a lot of children, and my children have all broken arms and legs. So Mark has always fixed them, and but he has done surgery on me. So he has removed some quite significant things from my body over the years.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Lots of children, lots of breakages. Okay. Trevor, and this all sounds amazing, and thanks for sharing it with us. I think just before we end off, maybe tell us, you've been busy in this lockdown, COVID times. I mean, you've developed and launching and marketing and a whole new product and reaching in, being innovative and creative. You're seeing opportunities, you making a difference, you doing new things. So what has this time meant for you? What have you actually, and then, what advice do you give for people who are running their businesses at this time?
Leigh, I think if we just cast our minds back 127 days, I don't think anyone in the world, and I'm talking about the South African situation now, had any idea that here we'd be sitting on the last Friday of July, still in a lockdown level 3, no access to restaurant booze.
This is where you have your distillery, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's been working beautifully. So I think it's given me personally a huge rethink in terms of how I want to live the rest of my life. When we were locked down in level 5, it was truly the roost that said, well, now you really have to make significant changes. And I think there were a couple of those. The first was really around embracing technology. I think we got thrown into the 4th industrial revolution so quickly that, I saw a statistic that Zoom was worth less than 10 billion Rand at the end of last year. It's currently worth in excess of 200 billion Rand. And it's just incredible that look at how you and I are doing an interview. It's incredible. We still can't keep power on in South Africa, but that's another situation. And so I think that for me was the first thing, was how to leverage technology. And through this time, I've worked quite a lot with you guys and with the Four Ways Chamber and the Global Village. That's been incredible. It's allowed me to spread my reach globally. It's allowed me to take my specialities and to get them online and to really share the learnings that I've had over the last 30 professional years. The second is from my own personal health perspective. It was a great time for me to reevaluate all those years of too much indulgence in the good life. So I've got a very different program every day, and it starts with some significant exercise in the morning. I'm reading the most incredible book called Younger Next Year, and I highly recommend it to everyone, because you're either in a state of decay or growth, and that's all dependent on exercise. It's really a worthwhile reading book. And then I took the time to rekindle relationships, and we've created a family blog worldwide, and we've got in excess of 600 members in our family tree connected throughout the world. And next year for my 55th birthday, I'm taking 3 months off, and I'm going to travel the world to go and visit all my family I've never seen or heard of before. We've come up with a new coat of arms, and we've really been having a lot of fun getting to know where we all came from, and what floats our boat, and yet here we all are with the surname Carty. Incredible. And the last thing that I really have done differently is I've used the time to get closer to my creator and to understand how do I apply these gifts and talents that have been downloaded in me to actually serve people more. So it's been a great period, and I've loved it. Nothing's going to change from this. I'm not changing when lockdown is gone. I do not look at email before 10 o'clock in the day. I do not take calls unless they're emergencies, because I'm out training or having my quiet time. And it's a 10 to 3 kind of thing. And then it's time to touch base and visit friends and family.
Wow, Trevor, those are, life lessons, aren't they? That
For sure.
And how fantastic that you've taken advantage of an opportunity that, how none of us would have known, as you say, that this was available to us, but that you were able to quickly turn around and say, okay, what is it about me? What is it that I can do differently? and it sounds like you've made some significant changes in what you've been doing, that will now be with you forever and to your advantage. So you've probably added, if you talk about this book, Younger Next Year, you've probably added 10 years to your life, just because.
Well, I've lost 3 belts. I've lost 3 belt sizes and 11 kilograms. So
Wow.
yeah, I'm very excited about that part of what's going on.
Oh,
Plus, I've fallen in love again, and so in lockdown, I have passion in my life again, and only problem with using your handheld is when your buddies phone you to say, can they come fetch their vodka and gin? You've got to let them in at the gate.
Well, Trevor, you know what? This has been an absolute pleasure to listen to your stories, to connect with you. I'm very excited at the opportunities that you're offering in the business world, in your area of expertise. I think anybody who gets an opportunity to listen to this interview is going to learn some incredible lessons about business, about life, and what we'll do is we'll also put a connection here on the interview, so people will know how to get hold of you and be in touch with you. So if they have any questions, if they want further information, they'll be able to be in touch. So
spectacularly. Thank you very, very much. And again, we are now sharing the solutions, and we are bringing franchisees in, so that around this country you can be that light in your community to those people that are providing healthcare services wherever you live.
Wow.
It's been really cool. Thank you so much for your time.
Fantastic.
And, I look forward to seeing the
As
results.
you say, watch the space. Watch the space.
Beautiful. Have a great
All
weekend,
good.
Leigh.
You
Thank
too.
you.
You too.
Ciao, ciao.